What's going on, everybody? If you're anything like me, I don't think you can actually see anything that's on this board. It's probably way too far away. So I'm gonna definitely use it and read off what's going on. This is my little class on calorie expenditure. Okay, how we burn calories, how we use energy, all that good stuff. And I'm gonna tie it all in at the end. But I'm gonna talk about the body's system or process on how we create energy in our body to enable us to actually do the things that we do. So, rock and roll. This is where I geek out. All right, team. The body's energy system is what I like to call it. It's actually called metabolism, and it's also, but it's more than just metabolism. It's physiology. And so with that, there is a process that's called cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is how we metabolize certain foods to create energy for our systems. And there's 3 different cycles to it. They all work together, but in succession. You know, some cycles aren't kicked in until a later time, but we're always using one because we're always using energy. Okay, so first, the body's energy molecule is called ATP. Okay, ATP, and so every time ATP is created and used, that's basically you burn calories that way. You burn a calorie that way. Okay, and so as we're using ATP, we have to create it. Okay, the way we create it is sugar, glucose. Glucose is its is its source. Okay, what is glucose? Glucose is sugar, but that's the very basic. That's the term for sugar, glucose. But there are multiple types of sugars. Okay, there's complex ones all the way. And just so we're clear, sugar, glucose, is carbohydrates. Basically, is a carbohydrate, and then it is stored in fat as glycogen. So think 3 different ways, okay? Because it's going to be important. Sugar, glucose, carbohydrates is where glucose comes from, and then again, lactose, fructose, monosucrose, all the oses is where you're looking at where sugar is the sugar complex. And so when we have excess of it, it is stored up as fat in glycogen or as glycogen in our fat, which creates more fat. Okay, so there are 3 cycles. I was saying glycolysis is one, the Krebs cycle or the citric cycle, and it actually has more than those 2 names, and then the electron transport chain. Okay, glycolysis is what we do all the time. Okay, this is like where we're normally at, and it's aerobic and anaerobic in that process, meaning it uses oxygen and it also doesn't use oxygen in order for it to break down sugar. But it's basically glycolysis. That's exactly what it means. It's the breakdown of sugar. Okay, so what it does is in that process for simple movements, like what I'm doing right now, just I don't need to breathe hard, breathe heavy. Matter of fact, I don't even breathe at all. There's oxygen in my blood, but don't geek out. Okay, so I don't need to breathe at all, and I can still create energy in my body for simple movements. And it's sugar's used. So where do we get the sugar? Well, from carbs. Carbs is where we get the sugar from. Okay, so the more carbs we eat, the more storage of energy is what we're gaining. So again, if we eat an excess of any amount of carbs at any one time that we could actually metabolize, then we store as fat, or we store as glycogen in fat, okay, in a fat structure. So how do we get to that? And I'll explain that in a minute. This glycolysis only breaks down a very minimal amount of sugar. So basically, honestly, every cycle of glycolysis only gives us 2 ATP. Right? Those are energy sources. Okay, only gives us 2. So obviously, we need more than just 2. You can see how it repeats over and over again in bursts of 10 seconds to 2 minutes. It could last this whole process. And so, but 2 ATP is very small amounts. So obviously, not high energy type things. Things you do, very basic, common, everyday things. Thought process alone, okay? So these are where glycolysis happens. So this is where we could stay at consistently. The Krebs cycle, once after about 2 minutes of glycolysis, if energy is still needed and it's at a higher rate, and we're going to talk about how that differentiates, we go into the Krebs cycle. And in the Krebs cycle, depending on how much energy is needed, that cycle could last anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, okay? 15 to 20 minutes. And so it breaks down, same thing, sugar, but it also, in tune with glycolysis, there's a couple of things that are made from glycolysis that transfer over into the Krebs cycle, which now the Krebs cycle uses to make more ATP. And it produces even more ATP than glycolysis. Glycolysis produces 2. The Krebs cycle could produce up to 4 to 6. Okay, so energy source. So you can see how, and this is, this isn't in the 15 minutes. This is a continual thing that'll happen every cycle that it goes around. It could produce 4 to 6 ATP, which again, higher source of energy, or higher amount of energy given to the body. Okay, so after, and still here, we're still using sugar. Still using sugar to break it down. Okay, so using the carbs, and these carbs are found in the bloodstream. They're not in fat. They're not anywhere else. They're found in the bloodstream. They're floating around. That your body is metabolizing at any point in time. So every time you eat, your body, again, every time you get hungry, it's your body telling you that there's no more sugar or energy sources or things to metabolize in the bloodstream. So it's telling you it's time to eat. You need to refuel. So because that's where your body goes. It never goes to fat until it needs to. And I'm going to explain to you exactly when. So while you're going throughout your day, you're using whatever you've eaten throughout that day or within the last 24 hours, it's in your bloodstream. Your body is metabolizing that sugar, breaking it down to get to ATP because we need the energy, burning calories, right? So when your body kicks into high gear over time, after a 20-minute cycle, we kicked into high gear between glycolysis and Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle, we're in high gear now, okay? But we're still just using the sugars that are in our body, all right, in our bloodstream. Until we kick into high gear for longer than 20 minutes, that kicks into the body telling itself, we need a huge amount of energy and we need it now. And so what it does, it goes into the next cycle. That cycle is called the electron transport chain. Electron transport chain, okay? Remember, we said 2 ATP for glycolysis, 4 to 6 for the Krebs cycle. This electron transport chain can actually produce up to 34, 36 ATP every cycle, okay? And not only that, it no longer uses sugar or glucose. It now uses glycogen. It now pulls from your fat, okay? Because fat has more stores. There's more value there. And if it's going to produce more, it needs to produce more ATP, then it needs bigger stores. It's not just going to get it from the sugar that's floating around in your body, in your bloodstream. It's going to get it from your stores, your gas tank basically, and that's fat. So when it blows into that 20 plus minutes, it starts to pull from glycogen, pull from your fat stores, and burn those calories. And this is why cardio people, long distance runners, cyclists, that you see them to be the leanest because they're burning so much fat because they're pulling from these stores more than they're pulling from their everyday meals. Okay, if that makes hoping I'm making sense now. So, what contributes to all these things? Well, first, energy demand is heart rate dependent, meaning how high your heart rate is. That tells the body how much energy it needs. So if your heart rate is very low, then, like right now, I'm not doing much. My heart rate is probably down to 60 beats per minute. It doesn't need that much energy. But if my heart rate kicks up to 140, 160, it's saying we need energy. We're pumping fast. We need work. So that's when it knows it needs to kick into these cycles. So it's heart rate dependent, okay? It is also, the energy supply is nutrient and oxygen dependent, okay? Nutrient and oxygen dependent. So think this way. We said it's sugar that breaks down, so carbs, right? But it doesn't just, like I said, it uses from one cycle to another, uses byproducts from breaking down that sugar, where those byproducts come in the form of potassium, vitamin C, and because there are more scientific names, but I don't need to talk about all that. But things like potassium, vitamin C, sodium, okay, salt. Salt is a big contributor here because salt, the difference between potassium and salt in your bloodstream, is there. That's the signal marker for your nervous system, and your nervous system is the communication through your whole body. So your nervous system is telling your body, oh, we need more energy. Oh, we don't. Oh, we need. So think of how fast these things are firing off. And so salts, potassium, and sodium are huge. Magnesium and calcium for your muscles, because your muscles use calcium every movement, every contraction, and every time you decontract, calcium is absolutely needed. B12, B6, another energy source for your body. Vitamin D, okay? Vitamin D is used to create calcium at times. So think of all these things. So vitamin B12, vitamin B6, vitamin D, sodium, potassium, magnesium, vitamin C, and calcium. I think I said it already, but it's important enough to say it twice. You need that stuff in your system in order for this process to work very well. Think of it as like an engine. The more lube, transition fluid, antifreeze, gas, water, all the things you need to make your car run smooth. That's exactly what we're talking about here. When you deplete any one of those things from your car starts to break down and mess up, and that's when you start getting those check engine lights, okay? Don't let your check engine light come on. All right, why oxygen? Why oxygen? Well, because this electron transport chain literally uses oxygen to magnetize or polarize, I should say, a certain molecule in order for it to create that high volume of ATP. Okay, so iron, I forgot, iron is another one. Iron in your blood is another part of this as well, heme. So that actually uses it binds with oxygen in order to create with another molecule to create this high volume. So you need a lot of oxygen, and of course it makes sense because your cardio, your heart rate's so up, you're breathing harder, you're pulling more oxygen in, and so that it uses that high volume of oxygen to magnetize, polarize, and create this energy source, ATP. So think about these things, okay? I know I got super nerdy and geeky on you right now, but these are the systems that we use to burn calories, to burn fat, okay? It only kicks in, the fat burning process only kicks in after your heart rate is at a certain level for a duration of time, more than 20 minutes. This is why 30-minute sessions are important. And then even after you're feeling so burned and fatigued, well, your heart rate's still up. So you're still using those fat stores. You see what I'm saying? And so carbs, sugar is the energy source here. Sugar is the molecule that it starts with. So don't think that sugar is bad. It's the type of sugars that you're eating and how much. Because remember, you can only metabolize so much at a time. The rest is stored in fat. And you say, well, I want to have energy for later. I want to have my stores all, full. Not so much. Trust me, a little bit of fat is good, but not too much, okay? You want to stay in that healthy percentile to make sure that your body, because remember all that pressure on your body as well. So this is why ketosis, and I know keto, I get it. No, let me tell you, your body does actually go into ketosis. Long distance runners, marathoners, after a certain period of time, this electron transport chain stops, okay? It stops and it goes into ketosis. It actually does. And that's when you start using protein as energy. But that is not a good thing, team. When you're running, training, all those things, you want muscle on your body. You don't want to start using muscle. That's when muscle cramps start happening. You'll see it in your urine. Your urine will literally turn dark, brown, almost like coffee grounds in a sense. That's not a good thing. So you don't want those things to happen, okay? How do you ensure that doesn't happen? Well, that's why you see them drink Gatorade or refuel with something during that time, because it'll replenish those stores and allow your body to continue to go into the electron transport chain versus ketosis. So that's why they eat quite often, okay? And once it depletes its energy stores, it'll kick into that field and you don't want it to. So, long story short, sugar's not bad for you. How much and what kind is bad for you, okay? Sugar is needed in your body, so don't deplete your carbs too much, right? Heart rate, get your heart rate up when you're working. And let me tell you something, you can still burn a significant amount of calories and pump using heavy weight, that's why when people go to the gym and they just sit there, it doesn't really make any sense. You want to keep moving in a workout, even if you're lifting heavy weights. Short breaks, quick bursts, get that power through. More muscle requires more energy. The maintenance of muscle requires more energy. So your metabolism goes from glycolysis to Krebs cycle very quickly, very quickly. So you want to make sure that you're lean and strong in that sense. All right. And remember the nutrients: vitamin B12, B6, vitamin D, vitamin C, salt, sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, all found in veggies. Veggies, team. You gotta eat your veggies. Okay. Gotta eat your veggies. That's where you find that stuff. All right. So breathe good, breathe right, work hard, train hard, push yourself. See you soon.